And then there were 8. 4 fighting for the trophy and 4 fighting to get out of the Chick-fil-A waiting room. Let's see how we got there. In the first matchup, we have a playoff jeffing as Zach loses with the second highest score total this week. His team played well, 3 20-point performances out of Rashad White, Njoku, and Scary Terry, but ultimately Sam Howell having a down week and his kicker buckling under the pressure of the Sunday night football kicker duel leaves him coming up a bit short to Skip here. Skip finding a way to win, not really a surprise anymore these days, as these waffle fries have fully cooked and they're scoring a lot of points. His team is looking very strong, solid performances throughout the lineup, only one player in single digits. He scores the high score of the week as he makes it into the semifinals. Next up, speaking of Skip, we have Paul, most points in the league this season, making an exit in the first round of the playoffs to Chase. 2 unfortunate first half injuries to Michael Pittman and Zach Moss after they were playing pretty well. Um, he made a good pickup in Demarcus Robinson at the last second before the games, but not enough as he comes up about 15 points short of Chase here. And last week we talked about Chase's team, how he's got some players that can score a lot of points and cover up gaps. Well, Dak scored 6 points, and no one other than Devontae really showed up for his team, but CMC scored 40, and you add that to Kyren Williams, they had over 60 points, which was over half of Chase's total for the week, as he pulls out the victory here and also moves out to the semifinals. Now, we have some non-competitive matchups here in the losers bracket. The Priors put up 55 points this week, 25 of which coming from Brock Purdy. That means that the rest of their lineup scored less than 30 points, which is 10 less than CMC scored by himself. This leaves Brian with a pretty easy win as he has a mediocre performance and scores 98 points, some middling performances from wide receivers, good specialty play, and he escapes the Chick-fil-A waiting room for this season. Joining him in safety is Ryan Cummins as he gets the victory over Tim, who also did not have a good week and put up 66 points. 40 of that 66 coming from Jalen Hurts and Devin Singletary. The bottom half of this lineup, that's 5 players combining for 9 points. That's not going to get you out of Chick-fil-A, Tim. Ryan had a meh week as well, but he gets out of the playoffs and no threats of Chick-fil-A sandwiches in his future. A few side notes here. Me with the 1 seed, my team, I could not even field a full lineup with all the injuries I had to my team, and they scored about 60 points. Conversely, Brittany in the 12 seed, her team scored 136 points this week. She would have stomped anyone in the losers bracket. She would have beat 3 out of the 4 teams in the winners bracket. But due to the bye week, those points don't matter. Those points don't count. She finds herself in the semifinals of the Toilet Bowl. Now, speaking of those semifinals, first matchup, me versus Skip. And yes, this is Gardner Minshew. I might have to start Gardner Minshew in the semifinals of the playoffs as my team has gotten a little banged up. Multiple questionable tags floating all around my team. Many of my players haven't played for multiple weeks leading up to this game. And one of my few healthy players who did play last week, my first round pick, scored negative points. So, confidence is at an all-time high. I'm also going up against Skip, who just dropped 140, over double my points. If I go from scoring 60 last week and beat Skip, who scored 140 last week, that's just fantasy football being very cruel to Skip. And I'm all right with that. In our second matchup, we have Big Lou against Chase. Lou also facing some injury concerns. Nico Collins questionable for the game. Jamar Chase just got ruled out. He'll be scrambling at wide receiver for this one. He'll also be scrambling at running back, but for the opposite reason, too much depth. He's got Breece Hall, Jahmyr Gibbs, James Cook, and Joe Mixon. Let's see if he makes the right decision there or leaves some points on the bench. For Chase, we've talked about this team. It's these 3 players right here. Dak, CMC, and Kyren Williams. Will they pop off or won't they? If they do pop off, Chase's team is extremely difficult to beat. Now for what we're all here for, the toilet bowl. And I have a little updated playoff picture here for the losers bracket. As we can see, Ryan took his win, and now he is flipped into a helpful position as he helps Lou bring over some chicken sandwiches to those still fighting to get out of the waiting room. Brian, as well, you can see he's still enjoying his drink, but he's moved back a bit, and he's enjoying it from the safety of the spectator gallery over by Skip, who, yes, is still chowing down. Still have 4 players fighting to get out of the restaurant. Now looking at that, the first matchup we have Brittany versus the Priors. Now this is eerily similar to me versus Skip because Brittany scored 136 last week and the Priors scored 55. If they somehow get the win 1 week later, that's just fantasy football being mean. And Brittany has had fantasy football be mean to her most of this season. Her team looks pretty good on paper. Kenneth Walker looking good, finally getting healthy. Cooper Kupp having a big game. Sam Laporta tight end win. All the ingredients here for Brittany to come out of this and become safe in the playoff picture. Let's see if that actually happens. In the second matchup, we have Jeff versus Tim. Tim's team is actually projected over 100 points this week, mostly because Jalen Hurts is playing against the Giants. But honestly, I'm looking at these teams. Justin Jefferson, if he can play a full game, that could be the determining factor for Jeff. Jeff has the least points for in the league by a significant margin, but Tim's team put up 66 last week. I got nothing here. This is purely a coin flip. Speaking of coin flips, Tim's still running Gabe Davis out in that lineup. I can't explain anything going on in this game. We will be here next week to explain it, though. So tune in to next week's Commissioner's Corner.